Hello everyone, this is MC Deck Discussions and I'm Abby Small. Now that I've completed a deck discussion for Magneto in all 5 aspects, it's time for a top 10 cards to add to a Magneto deck. And so we'll have a mix of cards, of course. So we have Justice, Pool, Protection, Aggression, and Leadership. So we have all of those decks. I'll be sure to link those decks below, as well as the videos on them in the description, so that if you want to access any of those, you can. But in any case, we'll have top 10 cards, but I also have 5. I had other cards that I just wanted to also talk about. So I also have 5 runners up. In any case, let's get started. Oh, before we do that, if you would like me to feature any of your decks, please share a deck with me and I'll be happy to feature it. I'm also happy to build a deck for somebody and then feature a video on that. And then also, if you have any cards that, in addition to the ones that I'm showing, that you think are great for a Magneto deck, please make a comment about that. And any other comments are great as well. Okay, now let's get started. All right, so my 5th runner-up is Lockjaw. And so Lockjaw, due to Magneto's main ability, so let's go look at that real quickly. All right, so if we look at Magneto and his hero ability, Magnetic Pull, discard cards from the top of your deck until a magnetic card is discarded, add that card to your hand. Well, if you're discarding a lot of cards, then certainly one of the cards that you may discard is going to be Lockjaw. So that would make Lockjaw available. And I included Lockjaw as what I often referred to as dead hand insurance. So let me go to one of the decks that describes that. All right, so here's a deck. So the Pool deck, for example, talks about this dead hand insurance. So if you played Magneto enough times, you know that he can have a dead hand because he could have a combination of his Wrapped in Metal that can't necessarily be played unless you have a non-elite minion out. And then in combination with that is Magnetic Missile, which you have to already have Wrapped in Metal attached to. And then he has his Master of Magnetism cards, which are resource cards. But unfortunately, those resource cards, I mean, the great thing of, it's great to have those extra resource cards, but if you combine that with these other cards, you could end up with a hand that has just all of these cards in it and not be able to play anything. If Lockjaw is in your discard pile, now you have something to play. So that's why Lockjaw, I'm pretty sure, was included in every single one of my builds here, and I consider him to be a great add to any deck. So he's my 5th runner-up. Let's look at the next one. Along those same lines, if you're discarding cards, White Fox might be one of those cards you discard, and White Fox has that great ability. After White Fox is discarded from the top of your deck, put her into play under your control. So did this happen all the time? No. I would say at least half the time I ended up with White Fox in my hand. But that's okay. She could just then be used as a resource. But anytime she did just come into play, you had a free ally coming into play who could thwart or attack a couple of times and then also defend for you. So highly valuable. Oh, by the way, I didn't read Lockjaw's ability. Some of you might not know that. So let me go back to Lockjaw just real quickly to read that for you. All right, so Lockjaw has this ability. You may play Lockjaw from your discard pile during your turn, paying his resource cost. So that's a cost of 4. By the way, that means that he's essentially being played as if he were in your hand. It's equivalent to a card costing 3 from your hand, because if you are playing a 3-cost ally, it actually costs you 4 cards in your hand. That's the effective cost. 4 cards from your hand. This also costs you 4 cards from your hand. So this, when you play Lockjaw, so this is the added strength of Lockjaw effectiveness, is that he has this 2 attack and 2 thwart with 2 consequential damage on each of those, by the way. But he's really like a 3-cost card, 3-cost ally, when he's played from your discard pile. So that is where you prefer to play him from. So that's an important thing to mention, because a lot of times people think, 4-cost card is still a lot. It is, but it's really equivalent to a 3-cost card being played from your hand. All right, now let's head back to the next runner-up. And we have Indomitable, so a protection card. and it's a 1-cost upgrade, has this response. After your hero defends, discard Indomitable, ready your hero. So I like this card for multiple reasons, one of which is because it's an upgrade, you already have it, and it only costs 1, right? So it's relatively easy to get into play. It's already sitting out there, so it's not taking up a space in your deck. So when you then, and here's the ability, right? Response. After your hero defends, discard Indomitable, ready your hero. So when you use this, at the time you're using this card, you still have all of your cards in your hand, and it doesn't use up a card in your hand. Or really, it would be, if this were an event, it would use up 2 cards in your hand, and then you have fewer cards in your hand when you come back to your turn. So this card being out there already. Now, why do I like this card as one of the runners up, or just a good card? Period. That is, you get a chance to defend with Magneto, and he readies, and he doesn't use up one of his readies. So that's one of the strengths of Magneto, is that he can ready. So let's go visit that right now, because that's going to be an important discussion point with regard to the other cards. All right, so within Magneto's kit, he has Magneto's cape. So this is one of my this is probably my favorite card of his. So that is, it's a hero card, costs 2 resource, and has the traits armor and magnetic. And Magneto gains the aerial trait. But here's the part that I really care about, is this response. After you resolve your magnetic pull ability, which we talked about earlier, exhaust Magneto's cape and ready Magneto. So being able to ready Magneto so that he has at least 2 times that he can attack or thwart makes this a really important card. So if we now go back to that protection card we were just talking about, in fact, I might as well just go there from here, Indomitable, right? After your hero defends, discard Indomitable, ready your hero. What this means is you have the ability to defend with Magneto, ready him, and not have to waste one of your activations of him attacking or thwarting when you come back to your turn. And again, like I said, and you still have your full hand of cards when you do come back to your turn. So you get to do as big a play as you want when you come back to your turn again. So a great card for Protection Magneto deck. Let's go on to the next one. All right, so for the next 2 runners up, I'm going to have a pair of cards that go together. They are both pool cards, and this one is Live Dangerously, right? So when you play this card here, first of all, it costs 0, and it is a player side scheme. And it has each identity, and it has victory 0, right? Which means that once you thwart this card, it's gone from the game. So each identity gets +2 hand size. And on top of that, you get these 4 icons, right? So these are all those dangerous icons that make life hard when you're playing. But this card is only important in combination with another card. So let's look at that other card, and that is Laser Swords. So it counts as 2 restricted cards, and Magneto doesn't have any weapons, so you can play this card and not worry about because you can only have up to 2 restricted cards. So you have this weapon, counts as 2 restricted cards, max 1 per deck. Your hero gets +1 attack for each of these icons in play, up to a maximum of +4 attack. So if you have this card in play, and then you also bring in Live Dangerously, which I only did right at the end of the game when I was making my push for victory, then now you have +4 to his attack. Magneto already has 2 attacks, so he now has 6 attack. And as I pointed out before, he can ready with his cape. So now he could attack for 6 2 times. That's 12 points of damage just from those 2 basic attacks alone. So those 2 cards in combination make my second and first runners up. All right, let's get to now what I consider to be the best cards. Any of these, by the way, really maybe could have made the top 10 as well. A lot of you might disagree with my placement of this. In essence, though, what I really care about is showing you what I consider to be really effective cards to have in a Magneto deck. All right, so now let's get to the actual top 10. All right, so here's the 10th card. So in a Magneto deck, there are going to be, and you're going to see as we get further down, much higher in the top 10, really why this card becomes so important. But just for now, I'm going to say that you're going to want a lot of, or actually, I like a lot of allies in my Magneto decks. Specifically, I like to have a lot of. I like to have a lot of, what are they called? X-Men allies, right? But in a leadership deck, I might have, a variety of other allies as well. And if I'm going to be running so many allies, and in leadership decks in general, people tend to run a lot of allies, then I would like them to be enhanced. So I really like this card. So you might wonder how this makes the top 10 above some of those other cards. And like I said, a person could switch them out as far as which one's in the top 10. So let's take a look at this card, right? It has 3 uses. And the only reason this card I wouldn't actually rank higher is because there's max 1 per player, which means you can have more. You can have 3 of these in your deck. I usually carry 2. But in play at a time, you can only have 1 of these out, at least 1 of these out for you. If you're playing multiplayer, you can always put another one out for somebody else. So it has 3 uses, and it has this interrupt. Oh, by the way, it's a 1-cost upgrade. And it has the skill trait. And it has this interrupt. When an ally makes a basic thwart or basic attack action, remove 1 leadership counter from here. That ally gets +1 thwart and +1 attack for that action. So this allows you to enhance each of your allies when they attack. Notice, you only have to remove the counters. If you have multiple allies out there, each one of this can use it until you use up your 3 counters. So this is essentially a card that's 1 cost for either, a total of 3 attack or total of 3 thwart. So either way you consider it, as 1 cost for 3 damage or 1 cost for 3 thwart. That is highly efficient. And then, but you're just being able to attack or thwart for 2 or 3 instead of the 1 or 2 that an ally is usually doing is very powerful. And some of those allies can even attack for 3. So it's just very powerful. And even more so because when you have multiple allies out at a time, you can start using up these counters in any way you want. And it's flexible, meaning, hey, if you don't need to use up one of these counters right then you don't have to. You can just save some of them until you find a moment when you need to use it. And the fact that you can switch between thwart and attack. So it's more powerful, and I brought this up in another video before. It's these kind of cards that are already pretty good to begin with as far as their efficiency are concerned, are even more powerful or more effective when they have flexibility. So this can impact your thwart or your attack for your allies, and that flexibility makes it even more effective as a resource, as a card, than it would otherwise. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next one. So that was number 10. All right, my number 9 is Clarity of Purpose. So Clarity of Purpose is just a great card in general, right? So you have Clarity of Purpose attached to a friendly character, max 1 per character. When I play this, I am attaching this to Magneto. And it has a hero resource. Exhaust this card, deal 1 damage to the attached character. Then you can generate a wild resource. So great in any deck. But with Magneto, he has a couple of additional reasons why, and one important reason why this can be even better in his deck. Let's look at those. So first of all, there's Magneto's attack card. So if we look in his events, he has the attack Metal Shards. And it's a 3-cost event, attack, magnetic, and superpower. And you can deal 7 damage to an enemy. If this attack defeats that enemy, gain a tough status card. So if you use Magneto's, if you use Clarity of Purpose in the deck, deals 1 damage to him. But then if you use it to then play Metal Shards, he then gets a tough status. So that tough status, then that means he can take an attack, which means in a way this card doesn't really cost you as much because he can take a full attack from a villain, which might cost you a whole bunch at the same time. So that's one reason why this is particularly good in a Magneto deck. And then the other reason why is because of one of his upgrades, and that would be Magnetic Bubble. So Magnetic Bubble is a 3-cost upgrade, has the traits Magnetic and Superpower. Magneto gains Retaliate 1 when he has this out, and it has this Force Interrupt. When you would take any amount of damage, place it here. Then if there is at least 6 damage here, discard Magnetic Bubble. So while this card is out, you can freely use this card, Clarity of Purpose, and just put that, they will put that damage right on the Magnetic Bubble instead of Magneto taking the damage himself. So that turned out to be a really cool usage of Clarity of Purpose, is when I had Magnetic Bubble. Sure, does it use up your Magnetic Bubble a little faster? Yes, but I didn't find that it really made much of a difference. Typically, I would still get to defend as, close to the same number of times. Or I should say, this card would take attacks typically the same number of times that it would have before. And so it ends up being basically free usages of Clarity of Purpose as far as the dealing damage to oneself is concerned. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next one. So that was our 8th place card. Let's move on to number 7. Actually, I misspoke. That was our 9th place card. So we're now moving on to number 8, which is What Doesn't Kill Me. So it's a protection card, 2-cost event. Has this requirement, so you must have a physical resource to play it, which is why, even though it doesn't make this list, I do include the support card, the X-Jet, which allows one to have a wild resource. So let's just show that card real fast. So the X-Jet, right? So it's a 3-cost support and has this resource, exhaust the X-Jet, generate a wild resource for a player whose identity has the X-Men trait. And Magneto's identity does have the X-Men trait. So at least on his hero side, so that's important, right? He can only use this on his hero side. But he could use it then to generate, in this case, that physical resource that we want in order to play that protection card, What Doesn't Kill Me. All right, now that we've mentioned that, here's the hero action. Heal 2 damage from your hero, ready your hero. So there is a caveat here. You do have to be able to heal that full 2 damage from your hero, right? Because it comes before the cost arrow in order to ready your hero. And so I always make sure that Magneto takes some damage early on in the game so that I'll be able to use this card and ready him. And we already talked about the effectiveness of readying Magneto. He has 2 attack and 2 thwart, and he can already ready with his cape. This allows him to ready another time. So now he can do 3 attacks or 3 thwarts or any combination of those. And so that adds up to 3. So What Doesn't Kill Me gives you those extra chances to also do so. All right, let's move on to the next one. So that was number 8. Number 7 is Boot. Boot Camp is a 3-cost support, and it has this location, right? Play under any player's control, max 1 per player. Location is its trait. Each ally you control gets +1 ATK, so all of your allies will be able to attack for 1 additional point of damage than they could before. I already talked about that in my decks. I'm using lots of allies, and so adding +1 attack to each of those allies becomes very, very effective. Even in just 1 turn, you have 3 allies out in play. You're doing 1 extra point of damage with each of them. So that can add up very quickly. As soon as you get Boot Camp out, you always notice the difference right away. It just seems like you're doing a ton of damage if you're running a lot of allies. And my aggression deck does run a lot of allies, just like all of my decks did. So that's it for Boot Camp. Let's move on to the next one. So that was number 7. Number 6. Number 6 is another aggression card. So we have a 2-cost upgrade, combat training, has this skill, play under any player's control, max 1 per player. Your hero gets +1 ATK. So now Magneto's attacking for 3 each time. And this means he has the capability, since he can ready with his cape, he can attack for 6 total damage each round. So that adds up to a lot, right? Imagine once you get this card out here and you also have the cape out, every single round you could do 6 damage. So you can help take care of minions. You can also be doing a bunch of damage to the villain, or a combination of those, which is really nice, right? You take out a minion and then do 3 damage to the villain. A lot of times you have to wait a while to build up more of your kit before you can start doing damage to the villain, and this can give you that ability to do so earlier and just do so the rest of the game. All right, so that was number 6. Let's move on to number 5. Number 5 is a Justice card, Waylay, a 3-cost event, and it's an attack event, has this hero response, and it's an attack. After hero thwarts, deal 4 damage to an enemy, not much to speak of there. 7 damage instead if that thwart removed the last threat from a scheme. So this card, in my opinion, is the reason why my Justice deck was so dominant, or one of the reasons why. I should say, in combination with all the thwarting that was being done and the protecting of the schemes from the villain, then this card meant that you were able to do a lot of damage to, certainly you can clear out minions with this, but to the villain. So you could do more constant damage to the villain throughout the game. So I would include 2 or 3 versions of 2 or 3 of these. Let's go ahead and take a look at the deck real fast. All right, so in this case, I included 2, and I think actually 2 is more appropriate. So now he has the capability of doing 7 damage 2 more times than he could before. And he also had already his Metal Shards card that could deal 7 damage apiece. Plus, we've mentioned before him being able to ready, so Magneto himself can do 4 damage just with his basic attacks if he has his cape out. So between all of that, that's a lot of damage. Plus, it's a Justice deck. So since it's a Justice deck, you are also doing a better job than most decks can do at protecting the scheme. We have some clear the areas in here that remove threat from the scheme and also can draw cards for you. But you also are able to include counterintelligence to prevent threat from going on the scheme, as well as add under surveillance to put increase the maximum of the scheme to 4. So this combination of things and adding 2 more attack cards that can do 7 damage, or possibly do 7 additional damage, means that you're constantly keeping everything under control and doing more damage to the villain. And so that's just very powerful and very efficient. And I just found Waylay to be a key card in making that happen. Just fun doing, more damage to the villain and doing it throughout the game instead of waiting till everything's always built up. All right, let's move on to the next card. So that was card number 6. I'm having trouble keeping track. Actually, that was card number 5. Let's move on to number 4. All right, this card will probably be a surprise card, but it's actually more than just Forge, but Forge is also important at the same time. So I mentioned before that we have, I'm playing a lot of X-Men, and so really this card combines really well with card number 3, so I'm going to show that real soon here. So Forge is a 2-cost ally, has 1 thwart, 1 attack, and 2 life. And so just that alone makes him just a nice card to play. But he has this awesome response. After Forge enters play, search your deck and discard pile for an X-Men or X-Force support and add it to your hand. So I already mentioned that I include the X-Jet as one of those supports. But if I already have the X-Jet out, and maybe even if I don't, but most of the time if I would choose the X-Jet the first time around, maybe. But even if I don't, I can always pick up another important card, which is card number 3. So first of all, just mention again, so this is Forge specifically is in the number 4 spot, but he at the same time represents X-Men allies in general. That's why it's so high up on this list. If it were just representing Forge, it would be lower on the list, but because he represents X-Men allies in general, he's much higher up on this list. So that's why he's number 4. Card number 3 is why the X-Men allies in general are considered to be in this spot number 4 when combined with Forge. So let's look at card number 3. Card number 3 is Utopia. So we already talked about some other cards that allow your hero to ready, and that's very effective, right? So he gets 2 attacks or 2 thwarts because of his cape. But now if we add in Utopia, which is a 2-cost support, has these traits, location and X-Men. If each of your allies has the X-Men trait, increase your ally limit by 1, which is also really nice, of course. But most of the time, I didn't end up using that part. And in fact, I often forgot that I could do it, I have to admit. But it was really in here for this response. After an X-Men ally enters play, exhaust Utopia, ready an X-Men character. And that character almost every time was Magneto. And here and there could have been a different one that I might have done, but almost the vast majority of the time. So Utopia is an important card in all of these decks. And so being able to ready Magneto and extra time, so it has 3 activations. And, some of those times, like, in the, we mentioned in the aggression deck, being able to add to, +1 to his attack. Now he can attack, 3 times for 3 points each time. So Utopia was a very important deck, very important card for this deck, or for all the decks. And so that's why I consider it to be number 3. Let's move on to number 2. All right, so number 2 is a pool card, Stick-To-Itiveness. And it's hard to say if, this one's really more important than Utopia, but I decided to put it number 2 because this one is a guaranteed ready of your hero, right? So it's a 2-cost upgrade, has this condition, hero action, spend a physical resource and exhaust this card, ready your hero. And I already mentioned that I included the X-Jet in my decks. And so I have available all the time a physical resource. And so now here's a chance to ready your hero even more. And then, so, he already has 2 attack and 2 thwart, right? He has his cape, so he can ready due to that. He has Utopia, so he can ready due to that. And he has Stick-To-Itiveness, so he can now ready anytime he wants with this card. On top of that, I mentioned earlier I had those cards that were runners up, which included, let me go ahead and show those cards real quickly again, which included Live Dangerously and Laser Swords, which would allow him to get +4 attack. So now he can attack for 6 each time. These cards are dangerous to have in play. Really, this one's the dangerous one to have in play. But him being able to have 6 cards and be able to do 6 attack each time for just his basic attack, and to do that, 3, possibly 4 times, but most of the time it would be 3 times. That's 18 damage just right there. So that combination, just deadly. But that other card, even before the end of the game, just really nice to have that extra time to be able to ready. So let's go back to that card again, right? So Stick-To-Itiveness, that extra time that you can get ready. And so 3 times once your cape is out, and you can thwart or attack for 2 any of those times. That's just a really awesome combination. So now let's go to the number 1 card that I have listed here. And I don't remember what it is right now. I'm wondering, how is that card better than these? And it might not be. It might be that a person on any given day might switch this order. But let's see what card I have listed there. Ah, yes, I remember now. So this might seem like a strange card to have as number 1. But Superpower Training is so great for Magneto's deck, right? So it's a 1-cost player side scheme, has a victory of 0. So, once you've defeated this, it comes out of the game. And when defeated, each player may search their deck and discard pile for an identity-specific upgrade and put it into play. So it's time to mention those upgrades, because this could be used on a variety of upgrades. The most important one being the cape, right? So let's look at the cape again, but then I want you to see the other upgrades that are all fantastic if you already have the cape in play. All right, so we've mentioned a couple of them already. So the Magnetic Bubble. Magnetic Bubble is a great card, and it's pretty expensive. It's a 3-cost card. So if you already have Magneto's cape and some of these other capes I'm about to show you, then Magnetic Bubble is a great choice to put in there. And sometimes I might prioritize that over some of the other upgrades, just because it protects him so well and gives him just like a free chance to continue to set up his kit, right? Being able to, prevent up to 6 damage, which means that he could prevent damage on multiple attacks, and it gives him retaliate. just a fantastic card. So being able to use the superpower card, the side scheme, what was that called again? Oh yeah, superpower training. So being able to use superpower training to get that card into play, highly effective. And typically though, my first priority is his cape. This card guarantees you can get that cape into play. But let's look at some of the other upgrades that are also awesome. All right, so we can look at here at Magneto's armor. It has this response after you, first of all, it's a 2-cost upgrade, has armor and magnetic traits, has this response after you resolve your magnetic pull ability. If you discarded at least one of the following resource icons, and you often do at least 2 of these and maybe 3 of them, then he gets some extra benefits. So Magneto can, if he discarded a mental resource card, Magneto gets +1 thwart this round. A physical resource card, he gets +1 attack this round. And an energy resource icon, Magneto gets +1 defense this round. So the first 2 are the ones that I tend to care about the most. And we already mentioned him readying multiple times. So now he could possibly get 3 thwart each time and 3 attack each time after he's readied, right? So you're going to use this ability. Typically, you're going to want to use this ability when you have already attacked, right? You're going to use his hero ability after he's already attacked or thwarted, because that's how Magneto's cape works, right? It readies Magneto after you use magnetic pull ability. So your first attack or thwart will still be 2, but after this, it could be 3. And if we combine it with some of the other cards we've mentioned today, like Stick-To-Itiveness that readies him again, he can attack for 3 again or thwart for 3 again. So just really awesome having those extra abilities. So Magneto's armor is another great target. And then we also have his Magneto's helmet. This is the last other target that I consider to be an excellent target for that superpower card. I forgot the name of it again. We'll finish at that card at the end. So Magneto gains steady, first of all, when this is in place, right? So it's a 3-cost upgrade, has the traits armor and magnetic. He gains steady, so right now it's tougher to be able to stun or confuse him. The villain has to do it twice in order to have that happen. And it has this resource, exhaust Magneto's helmet, generate a wild resource for a magnetic card. And all of Magneto's cards are magnetic cards. So that's, 14 cards? Probably. It's likely to be 14 cards. So that's a lot of targets for this. So another valuable card. So that is why I listed as our number 1 card. And let's go back to it to finish up. Superpower training that can allow you, by the way, it's 3 thwart per person, per player, in order to activate this. And I played solo, so it was always 3 thwart, but of course, person might use this playing multiplayer. So it able to get that's just too powerful, too important for Magneto's kit, is to get out. Certainly the cape, right, as a first priority, but the other cards, those other upgrades I showed, all fantastic cards that just make Magneto more and more powerful. All right, so that's it. Those are the top 10. And again, if you can think of any other cards that are just great Magneto cards, please mention that in the comments. And you can make any comments you want. I love having conversations with people there. Please like and subscribe as well. Helps to grow the channel. And again, if you would like me to go through any of your decks, certainly could be a Magneto deck, and like me to share that on the channel and even play test it, then I could do that. And I'm happy to build a deck for somebody as well. If you're just like, you know what, I would like to see a deck that's this hero, that's this aspect, then I'd be happy to build one. And if you say, you know what, I'd like to see one built that uses these cards in particular, around a certain theme or a certain card, I'm happy to do that as well. All right, that's it for today. Everybody have a good one, and I'll catch you next time.